The massive human diplomatic vessel Starbridge glided smoothly through space, its polished hull reflecting the distant starlight. Inside the ship's observation deck, Tom Miller stood with his hands clasped behind his back, trying his best to look professional despite feeling like his breakfast might make an unexpected return journey. It was his first diplomatic mission, and at 28 years old, he was the youngest member of the Earth Diplomatic Corps ever sent to make first contact with a newly discovered civilization. The fact that he had only gotten this position because he scored unusually high on the xenolinguistics exam didn't help his nerves one bit. Approaching Cristallo's station, the ship's AI announced, its voice echoing through the deck. "All diplomatic personnel, please prepare for arrival." Tom straightened his dark blue uniform and checked his reflection in the window. His short brown hair was neat enough, though his face looked a bit pale. "Don't mess this up," he whispered to himself. "Just don't mess this up." The alien space station grew larger in the viewport, a structure unlike anything humans had ever built. It looked like a massive snowflake made of translucent crystal, spinning slowly in space. Lights pulsed through its structure in rainbow patterns, making it seem alive. "Fascinating architecture," said Captain Ross, stepping up beside Tom. The older man had been doing diplomatic missions for 20 years, and nothing seemed to faze him anymore. "The crystalline people are quite different from us, Miller. Remember your briefing?" "Yes, sir." Tom nodded quickly. "They're silicon-based life forms with partially crystalline bodies. Advanced technological civilization, peaceful contact with 3 other species before us, and—" He trailed off, realizing he was rambling. The captain smiled. "Relax, son. They're actually quite friendly. Just follow protocol, and you'll be fine." The docking procedure took another 30 minutes, during which Tom reviewed his translation tablet one last time. The device was loaded with the latest xenolinguistic algorithms, but first contact situations were always tricky. One wrong word could cause an interstellar incident. When the airlock finally opened, Tom got his first look at the crystalline people. His jaw dropped. They were humanoid in basic shape, but their bodies were semi-transparent, like living crystal. Rainbow colors flowed through their forms like the northern lights, and their faces had geometric patterns where human features would be. They wore no clothes. They didn't need to, since their bodies weren't really naked in any human sense. A smaller crystalline stepped forward from their delegation. Unlike the others who had more angular features, this one's crystalline form had smoother, more curved patterns. The colors flowing through their body were primarily blue and purple, creating beautiful swirling patterns. "Welcome to Cristallo's station." The alien's words came through Tom's translator in a cheerful, feminine voice. "I am." Here, the translator made a sound like wind chimes. "But you may call me Crystal for easier pronunciation." Tom bowed slightly, following protocol. "Thank you for your welcome. I'm Junior Diplomatic Officer Thomas Miller, but please call me Tom." Crystal's body sparkled with what Tom would later learn was their equivalent of a smile. "Tom. What a wonderfully simple name. I have been studying human culture for many cycles, and I'm so excited to be assigned as your guide." Her enthusiasm was infectious, and Tom felt himself relaxing slightly. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. "If you'll follow me," Crystal continued, leading the way into the station, "I'll show you to your quarters. Our architecture might seem strange to you, but I assure you we've prepared comfortable accommodations for human biology." As they walked through the crystalline corridors, Tom noticed something odd. Other aliens they passed seemed to occasionally merge with each other, their bodies temporarily combining before separating again. He blinked hard, wondering if the artificial gravity was affecting his vision. "Is everything all right?" Crystal asked, noticing his confusion. "Yes, I just thought I saw." "Never mind," Tom replied, not wanting to seem rude by asking about what he'd seen. He made a mental note to check the cultural briefing files again later. They'd reached his quarters, a room that somehow managed to look both alien and comfortable at the same time. Crystal's color shifted to a warm golden hue as she turned to face him. "I hope you'll find everything satisfactory," she said. "Tomorrow, I would very much like to begin our cultural exchange properly. There's a special way we welcome honored guests that I'm particularly excited to share with you." Tom smiled, grateful for her friendly demeanor. "That sounds wonderful. Thank you, Crystal." As she left, Tom had no idea that tomorrow's special welcome would lead to the most embarrassing, and eventually most important, moment of his diplomatic career. Little did he know, Crystal was already practicing the traditional greeting in her native language, completely unaware of how its literal English translation would sound to human ears. Tom woke up to the soft chiming of the station's morning alert. His quarters sparkled as artificial light filtered through the crystalline walls, creating rainbow patterns on his bed. He had slept surprisingly well, considering he was on an alien station thousands of light years from Earth. After a quick shower and breakfast with familiar Earth food from the replicator, he checked his appearance one last time. "Second day, don't mess it up," he told his reflection. The door chimed, and Crystal's voice came through. "Good morning, Tom. Are you ready for our cultural exchange?" He opened the door to find Crystal literally glowing with excitement, her crystalline body pulsing with bright colors. Several other diplomatic staff members from both species were gathered in the corridor, including Captain Ross. "Today's a big day," Crystal said, her colors shifting to a formal pattern of blue and gold. "We've prepared our most honored welcome ceremony for you." Tom noticed that the other crystalline diplomats were arranging themselves in a semicircle. Something about their formal positioning made him nervous, but he smiled anyway. "I'm looking forward to it." Crystal moved to the center of the group. Her body language was different now, more ceremonial. The flowing colors inside her crystalline form became slower, more deliberate. "Among our people," she began, her translator working perfectly, "the highest form of trust and friendship is to share our inner space with another being. It is how we truly understand each other." Tom nodded politely, though he wasn't quite sure what she meant by inner space. Crystal continued, "As our honored guest, we wish to share this gift with you." She stepped forward, her form becoming even more transparent than usual. Then, with complete sincerity and formal dignity, she spoke the traditional words of invitation. The translator processed for a moment, then delivered her statement in clear English. "Human, please come inside me." Tom's face went from normal to bright red in record time. Behind him, he heard someone drop a data pad. What?" he stammered, sure he had misheard. Crystal's colors swirled with enthusiasm. "Yes, please come inside me. It is our highest honor. I have prepared my inner space specially for you." Captain Ross made a strange choking sound that might have been suppressed laughter. Tom's mind raced. This had to be a translation error. It had to be. But Crystal was standing there, beaming at him with literal lights of happiness, while a dozen other diplomats watched expectantly. That's very kind. But I don't think. I'm not sure that would be appropriate." His voice rose several octaves as he spoke. Crystal's colors dimmed slightly in confusion. "But why not? Many of our other alien friends have come inside me. It is perfectly safe." Someone in the back of the crowd snorted. Tom wanted to sink through the floor. "Other aliens," he squeaked. "Oh yes." Crystal brightened again. "Just yesterday, I had 3 Centaurian diplomats inside me at once. They said it was very comfortable." Captain Ross abruptly turned and walked away, his shoulders shaking suspiciously. 2 human junior diplomats followed him, making strange coughing sounds. Tom's translator beeped with a priority message. "Cultural context art. Physical sharing ritual. En on oripi rodu ctiv. Curueste alieni species. Qui tem puore host other beings within their meeturix for cultural exchange." The realization of what Crystal was actually offering hit him like a bucket of cold water. She wasn't suggesting anything inappropriate. Her species could literally create a safe space inside their crystalline bodies where other beings could exist temporarily, like living ships or biological meeting rooms. "Oh," Tom said weakly. "Oh, you mean literally inside your crystalline structure? For cultural exchange?" "Of course." Crystal's colors swirled in confusion. "What else could I have?" Her translator suddenly processed the human cultural implications of her words. Her entire body turned a mortified shade of pink. "Oh no," she whispered. "Oh no, no, no. The translation. I didn't mean. Oh, stars above." Now it was Crystal's turn to be embarrassed. Her usual graceful movements became flustered, her colors cycling rapidly through various shades of pink and red. The other crystalline diplomats, finally understanding the misunderstanding, began to flicker with their version of laughter. Tom found himself starting to laugh too. The whole situation was just too ridiculous. "Maybe," he suggested gently, trying to help Crystal recover, "we should work on updating the translation software first." Crystal's pink color gradually faded as she joined in the laughter. "Yes," she agreed. "That might be wise. Though I must say, your face turned a most fascinating shade of red." After the translation disaster, Tom sat in the station's observation lounge, staring out at the stars. His embarrassment had mostly faded, replaced by genuine curiosity about the crystalline people's unique ability. Captain Ross found him there, carrying 2 cups of what smelled like real coffee. "Rough morning?" the captain asked, handing Tom a cup. "You could say that," Tom replied, gratefully accepting the coffee. "Sir, why wasn't this in our cultural briefing?" "About their hosting ability." Captain Ross settled into a nearby chair. "Actually, it was. Page 47, under Unique Biological Features. But someone," he gave Tom a knowing look, "was so focused on memorizing their language patterns that he skipped the biology section." Tom groaned. "I'm never going to live this down, am I?" "Oh, definitely not," the captain chuckled. "But if it makes you feel any better, you're not the first to misunderstand. The Andorians had an even worse translation error 3 years ago. At least you didn't accidentally challenge their president to a duel." A soft chiming sound announced Crystal's arrival. Her colors were back to their normal blue and purple swirls, though she still flickered slightly pink when she saw Tom. "May I join you?" she asked carefully, her translator now updated with more culturally appropriate phrases. "Please do," Tom said, gesturing to another chair. "I believe we both have some questions." Captain Ross stood up. "I'll leave you two to sort this out. Miller, when you're ready, Crystal can explain everything about their biological sharing process. It's actually quite remarkable." He paused at the door, grinning. "Just try not to turn that interesting shade of red again." Once the captain left, Crystal and Tom sat in awkward silence for a moment. "I am truly sorry about the misunderstanding," Crystal finally said. "In my excitement to share our culture, I didn't consider how the translation would sound to human ears." Tom waved off her apology. "No, it's my fault. I should have read the complete briefing. Would you mind explaining how it actually works? The hosting process." Crystal brightened literally, her colors becoming more vibrant. "Of course. You see, our bodies are not just crystalline in appearance. We are living matrices of silicon-based crystal structures that can create safe spaces within ourselves. Think of it like, what's that earth animal? A kangaroo. You have pouches?" Tom asked, fascinated despite himself. No, Crystal laughed. "The sound like wind chimes. We can create entire rooms inside ourselves. Temperature-controlled, perfectly oxygenated spaces where other beings can safely stay for short periods. It's how we share memories, emotions, and experiences directly." She held up her arm, and Tom watched in amazement as the crystalline structure became completely transparent, revealing intricate patterns of energy flowing through channels that looked like delicate circuit boards made of light. "When we host someone," she continued, "they experience our memories as if they were their own. They can feel our emotions, understand our thoughts. It's the deepest form of communication we have. And it's safe? Tom asked, leaning forward with interest. Completely. We've hosted thousands of visitors from other species. The process is similar to stepping into a very comfortable room, a room that happens to be alive, and can share its life experiences with you. Tom sat back, processing this information. And this is why your people achieved peace so quickly in your history. Crystal's colors shifted to a deep, thoughtful blue. Yes, it's hard to hate someone when you've literally been inside them, experienced their fears, hopes, and dreams. We haven't had a war in over 500 years. That's incredible, Tom said softly. We humans, we're still working on understanding each other, even after all our technological advances. Would you like to try? Crystal asked gently. Not now, of course, but when you're ready. No pressure, and I promise to phrase the invitation more appropriately this time. Tom found himself smiling. Maybe. I think I'd like to learn more first. Could you tell me about the first time your people made contact with another species? Crystal's colors brightened with enthusiasm. Oh, that's a wonderful story. It involves a very confused Centaurian captain and an entire diplomatic team hiding in potted plants. As Crystal shared her story, Tom realized something important. Sometimes the most embarrassing moments could lead to the best opportunities for understanding. He still wasn't sure if he was ready to experience the crystalline people's unique form of sharing, but he was definitely ready to learn more. And this time, he promised himself, he'd read all the briefing materials. Over the next few days, Tom spent most of his time in the station's archives, studying everything he could about the crystalline people. After his embarrassing misunderstanding, he was determined to learn every detail about their culture. The more he learned, the more fascinated he became. He sat at a crystal desk that glowed softly, his tablet filled with historical records. Crystal found him there late in the station's evening cycle, surrounded by holographic displays showing various stages of her species' evolution. You've been here for 6 hours, she said, her colors shifting to a concerned green. Don't humans need regular food breaks? Tom looked up, blinking tired eyes. This is amazing stuff. Did you know your people used to be completely solid crystal? The ability to create internal spaces only evolved after a massive solar storm altered your planet's magnetic field. Crystal's body sparkled with amusement. Most of my people don't even remember that part of our history. You might know more about us than I do now. Look at this, Tom said excitedly, pulling up another hologram. It showed 2 crystalline beings sharing their internal space. Your first world peace treaty was signed inside your ancient leader. All 20 faction representatives went in together and experienced each other's war memories. They came out 7 days later and immediately ended all conflicts. Ah yes, the great sharing, Crystal said softly, her colors turning a respectful deep blue. It changed everything for us. When you can literally feel another's pain and joy, it becomes impossible to ignore their humanity. Or, well, their crystallinity in our case. Tom scrolled through more records. And you use this ability for everything. Business meetings, family gatherings, educational sessions. It's like having living meeting rooms that can share emotions and memories. You're starting to understand, Crystal said, sitting beside him. Her body cast rainbow patterns across the historical documents. Though I notice you've been focusing on the scientific and historical aspects, are you still nervous about the actual experience? Tom felt his face get warm. Maybe a little. It's just, humans are very particular about personal space. The idea of being inside someone else, even in a completely non-biological way, it's uncomfortable, Crystal suggested. Different, Tom corrected diplomatically. Though I have to admit, the benefits are incredible. Your crime rate dropped to almost 0 after this ability evolved. Your medical training is years ahead of ours because doctors can literally experience what their patients feel. Crystal's colors swirled thoughtfully. You know, there's an old saying among my people, understanding flows both ways. When we host someone, we also experience their memories and feelings. It's why I wanted to be a diplomatic guide. Each new species teaches us something new about the universe. Tom's tablet beeped with new information. Oh, according to this, you're actually considered a pioneer among your people. You've hosted more different species than any other crystalline in the diplomatic corps. Crystal's body turned slightly pink with modesty. I believe in building bridges between cultures, even if sometimes those bridges have translation problems that lead to hilarious misunderstandings. They both laughed at that. The initial embarrassment had become something of a running joke between them. "Can I ask you something personal?" Tom said after their laughter faded. "What's it like, having someone inside you, sharing their experiences?" Crystal's colors shifted to a pattern Tom had never seen before, waves of gold and silver that seemed to dance through her form. "It's like, imagine if you could feel the universe through someone else's senses. Every species experiences reality slightly differently. The Centaurians see different colors than we do. The Andorians perceive time at a different rate. Hosting them lets us briefly experience those differences." "And humans?" Tom asked curiously. "What's different about us?" "We don't know yet," Crystal said simply. "You're the first human I've invited to share space with me." Tom felt oddly touched by this. "Really? But you're the most experienced diplomatic host on the station." "Yes, but humans are special. You're the first species we've met who has such rich emotional lives without any natural ability to share them directly. I've been studying your art, music, and literature. You create such beautiful ways to express feelings that we simply share through hosting." Tom looked at the historical records again, seeing them in a new light. Maybe it wasn't just about the practical benefits or the scientific interest. Maybe there was something more important to learn here about different ways of understanding each other. "Crystal," he said slowly, "I think I might be ready to learn more about the hosting process. The proper way this time, with no translation errors." Crystal's entire body lit up with joy, filling the archive room with dancing lights. "Really? Oh, this will be wonderful. And I promise not to use the phrase that made you turn that fascinating shade of red." "I'd appreciate that," Tom laughed, closing his tablet. Sometimes the best way to learn about a culture was to take a leap of faith, even if that leap meant literally stepping inside someone else. The station's medical bay looked nothing like the sterile white rooms Tom was used to on Earth. Instead, rainbow-colored crystals pulsed with gentle light, and the medical equipment seemed to grow naturally from the walls. He sat on an examination bed while a crystalline doctor named Plea, another simplified translation, ran scans on him. "Everything looks perfect," Plea said, his body glowing with professional confidence. "Your biology is completely compatible with our hosting process, though I must say your heart rate is rather elevated." "He's nervous," Crystal said from where she stood nearby. "It's a normal human response to new situations." Tom smiled weakly. "Is it that obvious?" "Your face is doing that color-changing thing again," Crystal teased. Over the past week, she had gotten much better at reading human expressions and reactions. Plea's body shifted to a calming blue pattern. Would it help to understand the process in detail? Many beings find comfort in knowledge. "Yes, please," Tom said quickly, grateful for the delay. The doctor created a small hologram in the center of the room, showing the internal structure of a crystalline being. "Our bodies can create what we call a guest space, a perfectly safe environment customized for the visitor's biology. Think of it like a room made of living crystal that can sustain your life functions while allowing shared consciousness." "And I'll be conscious the whole time?" Tom asked. "Completely aware," Crystal added. "You'll be able to move, speak, and even exit at any time. It's more like stepping into a special room than anything else. A room that happens to be part of me." She finished with a slight flicker of pink, still occasionally embarrassed by how that sounded in English. Plea continued the explanation. "The sharing of memories and emotions is gradual and controlled. Crystal will start with simple surface thoughts and basic emotions. If you're comfortable, you can choose to experience deeper memories. Tom nodded, processing this information. And you've done this hundreds of times? He asked Crystal. Yes, though. She hesitated, her colors swirling uncertainly. The what? You'll be the first being I've hosted since learning so much about human culture, she admitted. I'm actually a bit nervous too. Your species feels emotions so intensely. What if my memories are too alien for you to handle? Tom hadn't expected this. He'd been so focused on his own nervousness that he hadn't considered Crystal might have concerns too. Somehow, knowing that she was also nervous made him feel better. Well, he said with a growing smile, at least we know the translation software is fixed. No more awkward invitations. Crystal's body lit up with laughter. Yes, though I've saved recording of your face from that day. It was the most interesting shade of red I've ever seen on any species. You recorded that? Tom groaned, but he was laughing too. Clear watched their interaction with interest, his colors shifting to a thoughtful purple. You two have developed quite a strong friendship. That will make the sharing process much easier. Strong emotional bonds help stabilize the connection. About that, Tom said, suddenly remembering something from his research. Crystal, isn't hosting a human kind of a big deal for your career? The record said first-time hosting of a new species usually goes to the most senior diplomats. Crystal's colors dimmed slightly. Yes, some of the elder diplomats weren't happy when I was chosen. They think I'm too young, too informal with other species. But I believe that real understanding comes from genuine friendship, not just formal diplomatic protocols. Is that why you've been spending so much time teaching me about your culture? Tom asked, beginning to understand. Partially, Crystal admitted, but mostly because you're the first human who seemed genuinely interested in learning about us, not just our technology or political system. You even asked about our art and music. Tom remembered their long conversations about crystalline poetry, where words were expressed through patterns of light and color. He'd been fascinated by how they could compose songs using their bodies as living instruments. Clear's body pulsed with approval. Well, all your readings are perfect, and your friendship is clearly strong. Shall we proceed with the hosting process? Tom took a deep breath and stood up. Looking at Crystal, he could see her colors swirling with a mix of excitement and nervousness that probably matched his own emotions. Ready when you are, he said. Just promise me one thing. Of course. No more recordings of my face turning red. Crystal's laugh filled the room with dancing lights. I promise nothing. The alarms went off just as Tom was preparing for his first hosting experience. Red lights pulsed through the station's crystalline walls, and an urgent announcement echoed through the medical bay. All diplomatic personnel report to the main chamber immediately, the station's AI announced. Priority 1 situation developing. Tom and Crystal exchanged worried looks. In the 2 weeks he'd been on the station, they'd never had a Priority 1 alert. Even Clear, the usually calm doctor, turned a worried shade of gray. We should go, Crystal said, her colors shifting to serious diplomatic patterns. The hosting will have to wait. They hurried through the corridors, joining other diplomats rushing toward the main chamber. Tom noticed that several crystalline diplomats were carrying smaller beings inside them, other species representatives being transported quickly to the meeting. The main chamber was chaos when they arrived. Captain Ross stood with the station's leaders, their faces grim as they studied a large holographic display. The image showed a massive solar storm approaching the station, far bigger than anything in recent records. The storm will hit in 6 hours, one of the crystalline scientists explained, his body flickering with urgent patterns. Our regular shields cannot handle this level of radiation. Can we evacuate? Someone asked. The radiation levels are already too high for safe ship travel, Captain Ross replied. We lose half our vessels before reaching safe distance. Tom studied the hologram carefully. Something about the storm's pattern looked familiar. Then he remembered his research about crystalline history. Crystal. He grabbed her arm, causing her colors to swirl in surprise. You said your people evolved their hosting ability after a massive solar storm, right? Yes, but I don't see how that. Her colors suddenly brightened with understanding. Oh, the radiation. She rushed to the station's leaders, her body pulsing with excitement. The historical records. Our ancestors survived the Great Storm by sharing their crystalline matrices. Their combined structures created natural radiation shields. The station leader, a tall crystalline named Bright, turned their attention to Crystal. Are you suggesting we attempt a station-wide hosting? It could work, Crystal said. Our bodies can protect other beings from radiation, if enough of us combine our efforts. But we've never attempted hosting on this scale, another leader objected, and some species here have never experienced hosting at all. All eyes turned to the human delegation. Captain Ross spoke up. I can't order my people to participate in something like this. It has to be their choice. Tom felt his heart racing. He'd spent days researching the hosting process, preparing himself mentally for it. But that was supposed to be in controlled conditions, not as an emergency radiation shield. Crystal moved to his side, her colors gentle and reassuring. Tom, I know this isn't how we planned your first hosting, but I'll do it, he said, surprising himself with how steady his voice sounded. I've studied the process. I know it's safe, and if it can help save the station. His words seemed to break the tension. Other humans from the diplomatic team stepped forward, volunteering as well. The crystalline people began organizing themselves, preparing their bodies to host not just one or two beings, but entire groups. Are you sure about this? Crystal asked him quietly. It's one thing to read about hosting, another to actually experience it, especially in an emergency. Tom managed a small smile. Well, at least this time you won't have to ask me to come inside you. I'm volunteering. Crystal's body flickered with surprised laughter despite the serious situation. You're never going to let me forget that translation error, are you? Never, Tom agreed. Then, more seriously, I trust you, Crystal, and sometimes the best diplomatic decisions happen in unexpected moments. The station rumbled as the first waves of radiation hit the outer shields. They had less than 5 hours now. Bright called out to the assembled diplomats. Those who are willing to participate in the hosting, please join your assigned crystalline partners. Those who prefer not to, we have reinforced inner chambers ready. Tom looked at Crystal, whose colors had shifted to a deep, determined blue. Ready? She asked. He took a deep breath and nodded. Ready. Just don't record my face this time. In a life or death situation. Of course I'm recording it. Her attempt at humor helped calm his nerves. As the first groups began the hosting process, Tom watched in amazement as the crystalline people's bodies lit up with intense light, creating beautiful patterns of protective energy throughout the station. Soon, it would be his turn. He was about to experience something no human ever had, a mass hosting during a crisis. He just hoped all his research would help him handle whatever came next. The first step into Crystal's inner space felt like walking through a doorway made of light. Tom had expected it to be strange or uncomfortable, but instead, it felt surprisingly natural. Her internal guest space was beautiful, walls of living crystal that pulsed with soft blue light, perfectly comfortable for human biology. Are you all right? Crystal's voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Actually, yes, Tom replied, amazed at how normal his voice sounded inside her. It's like being in a room made of the northern lights. Around them, throughout the station, other humans and alien species were being hosted by the crystalline people. As the solar storm grew stronger outside, the combined crystalline matrices began creating a powerful radiation shield. Then the sharing began. It started as gentle waves of emotion. Crystal's excitement at first meeting humans, her embarrassment at the translation error, her joy at finding a friend who genuinely wanted to learn about her culture. Tom felt each emotion as if it were his own. This is incredible, he whispered, watching memories float by like colorful clouds. He saw Crystal's childhood, her first day as a diplomatic guide, her favorite moments learning about other species. "Look," Crystal said softly, her consciousness gently guiding his attention. "This is how we see humans." The memory shifted, and Tom gasped. Through Crystal's crystalline senses, he saw humans as brilliant fountains of emotional energy, each feeling creating beautiful patterns of light and color. Even simple actions like smiling or laughing produced spectacular displays that the crystalline people could see. "We look like that to you?" he asked in wonder. "Your species feels everything so intensely," Crystal explained. "That's why we were so excited to make contact with humans. You experience emotions as strongly as we do, just in a different way." The station shuddered as another wave of radiation hit, but the combined hosting shield held strong. Through their shared connection, Tom could feel how all the crystalline people were working together, their bodies creating a living network of protection. Then something unexpected happened. As Crystal shared her memories with Tom, his memories began flowing back to her. She experienced his childhood dreams of meeting alien life, his nervous excitement about this diplomatic mission, his genuine fascination with her culture. "Oh," Crystal's whole being lit up with understanding. "That's why you spent so much time studying our history. You weren't just being diplomatic. You were living your childhood dream." Tom felt himself blush, even in this shared space. "Well, meeting aliens was always my goal. I just never expected one of them to invite me inside them quite so dramatically." Their shared laughter rippled through the crystalline matrix, creating beautiful patterns of light. Around them, other humans and aliens were having similar experiences, sharing memories and emotions with their crystalline hosts. The next 3 hours passed like minutes. While the solar storm raged outside, something remarkable happened inside. Humans experienced alien memories firsthand. Diplomats who had argued in meetings felt each other's perspectives directly. Cultural barriers that had taken months to navigate were crossed in moments of shared consciousness. When the storm finally passed, and it was safe to end the hosting, many beings were reluctant to leave. Tom stood in the main chamber afterward, feeling oddly different. Not bad different, just more aware, more connected to everything around him. Crystal stood beside him, her colors showing a mix of tiredness and happiness. "Thank you," he said simply, "for sharing your world with me, for being patient with my nervousness, for everything." Crystal's colors shimmered with emotion. "Thank you for trusting me, even after our awkward start, and for showing me how humans see the universe. It's beautiful through your eyes." Captain Ross approached them, looking tired but satisfied. "Well, Miller, I'd say this goes down as one of the most unique first contact situations in diplomatic history. Started with a translation error and ended with the entire human delegation literally inside our new allies." "Speaking of translation errors," Crystal said, her colors dancing mischievously, "I did manage to record Tom's face when he first entered my guest space. Would you like to see?" "You didn't." Tom groaned. "Oh, but I did. Consider it a historical diplomatic document." As Crystal shared the recording with the captain, Tom couldn't even feel embarrassed anymore. After sharing minds with her, a little teasing between friends seemed perfectly normal. Besides, he had recordings of his own now, like the exact shade of pink Crystal had turned when she realized what her invitation had sounded like in English. Diplomatic relations, after all, were all about fair exchange. The station soon returned to normal operations, but something had fundamentally changed. The boundaries between species had blurred, replaced by deeper understanding. And it had all started with a simple misunderstanding about coming inside someone. Tom's final report to Earth contained one main recommendation: update all translation software immediately, and maybe, just maybe, prepare future diplomats for some very unique cultural exchanges.